We are live. We are live. We are live. Thank you so much for tuning in. We got some people on LinkedIn already. We got some people on YouTube watching. So, incredible journey we're going to um, have for you right now. That is a journey of Lefty, and he is going to explain to us how to explode in lead gen and how to explode in lead brand recognition with the power of documentary filmmaking. And he he's absolutely amazing what he does. He has won 10 plus cinematography awards for best films and stuff like that. So, uh, before we get into this, I just want to warmly welcome all of you. This is J&M Linky Live. We're going to have lives every week. Next week, we're going to have the one and only Patrick Simone, resident LinkedIn expert that's going to talk about outbound, inbound strategies on LinkedIn. So stay tuned for that. Let's get right into the meat here. So, Lefty, thank you so much for your time. We know that you've been around Facebook for many years, you've been around LinkedIn for many years, and you built a wonderful brand for yourself with video. So, can you tell us a little bit of how you got started and who is Lefty?
Oh my gosh, where do I even start? My story is a loaded question, but
Mhm.
if I can summarize it, I was born into a family of entrepreneurs who dominated radio and television broadcasting for over 40 years. In and around the early 2000s, when radio and television were going to slowly start take a hit, we kind of got out of that. And that's when I ventured into my love for music. I became a music producer, DJ, ghost writer, you name it. I was I had residencies in North America. I had toured all over Europe. I played beach parties, music festivals, you name it. And then when I was in my early 30s, I just did not want to get sucked and trapped into the ugliness of the music industry and the nightlife that comes with it. So I decided to switch one creative for another after having a decent conversation with my wife, and I fell into photography and videography. But it actually wasn't videography that I started with first. It was photography. And
Mm.
funny enough, the genre of photography that I was doing was actually boudoir photography. It was lingerie and swimwear. And I didn't call that niche. I wasn't like, oh yeah, that's something that I want to do. Somebody happened to DM me on Instagram, and we're talking like 7, 8 years ago. And they were just like, do you do this type of work? And I was like, I've never done it before, but sure, I guess I can try it out. Right? Like, uh, I was like, yeah, sure, I'll do it. Okay. And honestly, from that point on, I didn't look back. I was on a bunch of magazine covers. I got to work with a lot of incredible women. I learned during that time how to build trust, how to build an emotional connection, how to build patience, and just a bunch of other things along the way. That work led me to having some of my commercial work on billboards on the Young and Dundas Square. Young and Dundas to Toronto is like what Times Square is to New York, just
Mhm.
on like a smaller scale. So that was really cool. It was really cool seeing my work on like these big projectors, which was really awesome. And once I decided to get all the information that I had for photography, naturally I want to teach. I want to teach everybody what I know, how I know it, the the best camera settings and all that jazz. So I decided to start a YouTube channel. Rest in peace that YouTube channel, because I made a branding mistake and I happened to delete the entire channel.
Oh no.
Um yeah, it was really bad, but what ended up happening is through that first initial journey of being on YouTube, I fell in love with video.
Hmm.
And that right there was like, screw photography. I don't care about photography. I just want to know everything and anything about video. So ended up I ended up doing exactly that. I switched all my settings to video. I got myself into the film industry. I became an assistant. I just learned the ropes. I learned lighting. I learned color. I became a certified colorist for film and television. Because believe me, there's a lot of bad skin tones out there. So we gotta put a stop to that. Um, but yeah, and then I got into the coaching space. Jay Lee was actually the first person that kind of scouted me and pretty much said to me like, "Hey, you seem like um, a best kept secret," like he likes to say. And I got into the coaching space and I started doing video sales letters for coaches, and that led to a few bad apples because if your sales suck, it's because the video didn't work, right? No, that's not the
Yeah.
truth. That's not the case. So a few individuals held me responsible for their poor sales efforts, and that just kind of gave me an epiphany to turn around and say, I'm not responsible for your sales and I don't want to be a part of that exact world anymore. And I want to do what I fell in love with video to begin with, which was the film industry, creating movies, creating
Hmm.
just big, epic storytelling adventures.
Mhm.
So during that time that I was making the switch, I said goodbye to video sales letters, and a very, very well known coach named Robert J. Moore at the time. He wanted to do a documentary with me, which was kind
Wow.
of more of like
Amazing.
a autobiography.
Mhm.
And, it was a feature film. It was an hour and a half. Well, yeah, it was about an hour and a half. Uh, that's where I won best cinematography and
Wow.
a bunch of other awards like
Amazing.
best director. Yeah, yeah. And we had a movie theater release for it. It was craziness.
Wow.
And
Amazing.
honestly, that's where I am right now, guys. That's the we are present day.
Wow, man. Absolutely amazing story here. And it just goes to show you, sometimes you don't know where you're going to fall into, but
Yeah.
it's
Hmm.
a learning journey, and good on you, Lefty, for taking the leap
Thank
to, photograph people or beautiful women, right? Right? No,
Well,
no.
I didn't even pay attention to that
Yeah,
part, but yeah.
exactly, exactly. So awesome, awesome, Lefty. Um, what we want to get into right now is like really the process of storytelling. We're going to go into the process of storytelling because a lot of people don't know how to communicate their story on video,
Yeah.
um, much less short form or long form, right? Which is even more complex, more idiosyncrasies, more like emotion tied to long form documentaries, obviously. So, like, what is your process, and what like valuable practical tips can you give people in order to for their brand to pop with storytelling?
Yeah, so the first thing in terms of where I start everything, because I don't have discovery calls. Oh, I know that's crazy, right? I don't have discovery calls, but what I mean by that is I have get to know you calls, because at
Mm,
the end of the day, I'm a storyteller. So I don't care about your business. I don't care about your sales. I don't care about what your funnel process is. All that doesn't mean anything to me. Your story
mm,
matters to me, right?
mm.
So when I'm going through the
Beautiful.
process, I'm thinking first, do you have a topic or do you have a story? Because a lot of the times people think that a topic is a story, and that's not the case,
Yeah.
right?
Hmm. Hmm.
So if you can just figure out if you have one or the other, then at that point you're going to start to be able to break the barriers, right?
Mm,
So, for example, somebody can come up to me and be like, I want to do a documentary about the Marriott Hotel. Okay.
Mm.
What about it? Right? Is it the employees? Is it the CEO? Is it the janitor? Is it the chefs? Is it the overall experience? Are we telling the story from a vacationer standpoint or the front
Hmm.
desk, right?
Hmm.
But the Marriott Hotel is the topic, right? So think of yourself as a coach, as a business owner, as an entrepreneur. Like Jordan is the topic, but what about the story? What does Jordan have to say? What does Jordan have to provide in order to make that topic interesting and turn it into a story? And then from there we get into the whole entire thing of like I don't know. I take it back to kindergarten, right? I take it back to like when you're first starting school and you're like 4 or 5 years old and you're literally being taught your who, what, where, when, and why, right? So once I can figure out the very, very, very basic fundamentals, then at that point is when I get into the real nitty gritty of a story.
Oh
But
yeah,
it's hard to say like, oh, Lefty, do you have a formula? Oh, Lefty, do you have a
yeah,
template?
yeah,
I don't.
yeah.
There's no template and formula because
Exactly.
let's say you have two homeless people, right?
Mm,
How they got there is different. how
Hmm.
they how they
mm,
came adversity is different.
yeah,
So I cannot ask the same people the same questions.
yeah,
You know what I mean? and
yeah.
that's what and that's what makes the stories so beautiful, and that's what
Wow,
makes the stories
amazing.
different. Yeah.
Yeah, totally agree. Absolutely mind blowing information. And it is true that many people get lost in the topic and then they don't communicate their emotion because they're just talking about the topic, right? So,
Yeah.
and yeah, I totally understand. Mark, did you have a question there?
Yeah, just a quick one, Lefty. So, if someone is trying to tell their story, could you give them three valuable tips for the onlookers of what they should look to strike within that story? So, if they were creating their own documentary, can you give like your three best tips of what they need to include in that documentary?
Mm,
Yeah.
okay.
You got to figure out who your protagonist and your antagonist are, right?
Mm,
Who is the hero of the story? Who is
yeah.
the bad guy or girl of the story, right? Um, but even after figuring that out, I like to use the George Lucas method, and I like to
Mm,
I
yeah.
create my stories like Star Wars, right?
Nice.
I start with
Mm,
the ending in mind, right?
mm,
And what I mean by ending is I don't mean the ending of the story. It's more so the ending of like, where do I want this project to live?
mm,
You know? So what I do, I'm a film distributor. I take films and I pretty much have the opportunities to shop them to Netflix, Paramount Plus, Hulu, Peacock, any large, medium, and even small streaming platform. So I'll give
mhm,
you a great example. I've had a lot of films come out to me where I've done documentaries, I've done films, but they've only had a running time of like 10 to 15 minutes. And then all of a
Hmm.
sudden, the owner or the CEO or the founder, whoever I'm working with, will come back to me and they'll go, "Hey, Lefty, I had this really awesome idea to what if we pitch this to Netflix?" Okay, cool. You should have thought of that before we did a 10-minute video, right? So
Hmm.
so you
yeah.
gotta think about what is the end goal of the film.
Yeah.
Where is it gonna live? Is it going to be? Are you going to create like a landing page for it where it could be video on demand and people can rent the film and they can watch it on their own time, pay
Hmm.
whatever, $5, $10, $20? Is it just going to be free on your YouTube channel? Or is it actually going to go to a streaming platform? Are you licensing the film to other organizations that are in and around your world? Are we licensing the film to broadcast media? Is it going to be on television? So there's so many things that you have to think about where we have to start at the end before we can go to the beginning. Once that happens, then you think about, like I mentioned, the protagonist and the antagonist, and then you want to go through your who, what, where, when, why. You want to tell the journey of the hero, but just because it is potentially a hero's journey, I actually love the documentaries that don't have a happy ending. I love the documentaries where it's like I tried this and I failed, because the whole point of the film is that you want your audience to get invested in something that you're doing. It's like the person sitting there going, go, 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 go. And then you're either going to succeed with what you're attempting to do in the end, or you're going to absolutely, hit the pavement. But nonetheless, both are great stories, whether they have good endings or bad endings.
Wow, amazing. So for the 15 people watching here, just fire up the chat with your questions. Fire up the chat with any. Do you want to ask Lefty a question about storytelling on video, or about video creation, or about anything at all? This is your chance to have a 10-time award-winning person over here. So awesome. So we got Gracie in the house here. Hey Gracie, how's it going?
Hi,
Yeah,
Grace.
it's a very good topic. We're delighted to have a lefty here in the house for sure. So I just wanted to get into like specifically like the behind the scenes
Yeah.
of your filmmaking and the key difference, because I know that you made a transition between short form video and long form documentary, and, and that's like a super interesting too. So let's just start with like why, like you were known for a long time as a short video king, right? Obviously,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So so why the transition to long form then?
Oh my gosh. So this was really, really funny, right? When I was working with Jay Lee, um, there was we ended up filming a bunch of videos. It was probably like, I don't know. I think it was like 25 videos, 25 videos, and out of those 25 videos, it accumulated like just under 500,000 views, right? And out of 500,000 views, I think he booked maybe like one or two calls out of 500,000 views.
Wow.
And this was during like the peak of short form content, where everybody is going crazy for short form. Like, if you're not doing short form, you're nothing, you're nobody, forget it, forget this. And I'm sitting there saying, this is a load of crap, this isn't going anywhere,
Yeah.
right? This isn't going anywhere, this is a waste of time.
Mhm.
um and you know what, this is probably the second time that in my entire career that I've probably been deemed as like the village idiot, right? Because when the village idiot comes out screaming and calling, "Hey guys, listen to me," everyone's like, "Ah, you're the village idiot, I'm not going to listen to you," right? But then what ended up happening probably 8 9 months later, Instagram started pulling the revenue sharing.
Mm.
uh TikTok announced 10-minute videos. So
Wow.
it's like, and I always say it, like, I wish just people just would listen when I speak, but you have to you have to go through your own journey and your own path, and you
Exactly.
you got to scrape your knees to
Yeah,
understand. But
exactly.
uh you know I'm told at times that I'm like ahead of my time, right? and
Mm.
and, and that's okay, as long as the people that listen to the advice that I give meet me somewhere at some point,
Yeah,
that makes me happy.
yeah.
But I started realizing, I started realizing like very, very early on, like, this isn't gonna happen. And now imagine Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, all these platforms without ad revenue are dead.
Mm,
are dead. And no offense to everybody listening, but Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn and all those platforms, they're not surviving because of your $100 campaign. They're surviving because Nike just gave them $50 million to run their ads, right?
mm,
So if you're already watching a 30-second video, what you're going to put an ad in between a 30-second video? It doesn't work. So
mm,
these platforms actually started losing contracts. They're like, this is stupid. We're going to pull our money because our videos are and our ads are never going to get shown here. So these platforms started kind of getting scared, right? So what I did was I shifted the focus from short form to long form, went 100% into my YouTube content, and then I also started realizing like, oh wait, I can create a video or a film that I can do once and I can constantly share it because it's literally evergreen. Like your 3 reasons why video is maybe worth 72 hours, right? And I was like, oh, okay. I'm onto something. I'm gonna bring what I've learned in the film industry to the coaching industry. And it still scares people because they're like, "Oh, this is a different world that I never thought about." Like, what? Winning
mhm.
an award for my documentary? What do you mean? Like, um, but I've created this concept where it's film once, share forever.
Yeah,
Love that.
that's good,
Love
man.
that.
I mean, and I think that's where the legacy comes in, right? Like you talk
Yeah.
about a lot about legacy, and so what does legacy? What's the word legacy mean to you, Lefty?
Immortal.
Yeah.
It's essentially being immortal. It's essentially um creating a piece of content that absolutely stands the test of time, right? And I'll give a perfect example. There's a documentary called Nanak of the North. I don't expect anybody to watch it because it was made in 1932, or sorry, 1922. And but the point is that when you're in film school or you're or even documentarians that are educating people now as filmmakers to get into the documentary world, they're still talking about Nanak of the North, and this is a film that's over 100 years old, or yeah, actually, it just passed 100 years old, right? So imagine that, like your video sales letter, what has a shelf life of 5 years? Your short form content, if lucky, has what a shelf life of 7 days. Why would you not take all that time and effort and put it into a film that your kids can share, your grandkids can
Mm,
share? Because nobody is going to do the doom scroll to be
yeah.
like, hey, let me go see what grandma posted in 2021 when it's almost the year
Yeah.
3000. It's not going to happen, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
true.
Um,
Yeah.
so for me, legacy means immortal.
Mm, yeah. The, I mean, definitely very, very, very deep there. Yeah, it's all about like creating an impact, right, and helping people, and legacy has all everything to do with that, right? So,
Mhm.
so, um, so let's picture if someone was to work with you. I know that you outlined kind of steps forward, but like what does that involve? Like, maybe a lot of people don't know what is involved in a documentary. Oh, a documentary is simple. Okay, you just make it, right? So,
Yeah.
what is like everything involved? Like, I'm not asking for all the details, but I'm just asking for like, it's a big job. It's a huge job, right?
Yeah.
So, what are the major things that people don't consider when wanting to make their documentary?
Yeah, so first and foremost, when you hire me, We're not filming tomorrow, and I'm not delivering your project in 30 days. So automatically get that out of your head. Um, the the average project is 4 to 6 months, and they can go as long as 24 months. So there's, I mean, and I'm actually being very like very modest and humble when I say 24 months. There are documentaries that are 10 years in the making. So um, that's on the low front, 4 to 6 months. And what we do is we break everything up into stages, right? So first and foremost, these projects don't come with a light price tag. That's just the god honest truth. But what makes what makes me allowed to make the impossible possible is that I have taken pre-production, production, and post-production and separated them all, right? So we cannot get to filming anything until we figure out the story we're telling, the doing the location scouting, how we're filming it, the people that are going to be involved, the interview questions. Possibly there's a bit of a scripted area within the documentary where it's not just off the cuff, off the record, just raw talking the way that we are right now. So pre-production typically takes anywhere between 30 to 40 days. Also, that depends on how much availability and time does that business owner want to give me in order to get the project out. Once that's established and everything is go, I have the green light. The client is happy. They're just ready to go. Then we move onto the production side of things, which is now we're actually filming the project. We're doing the deed, and that process could be another 1 to 2 months of filming, depending on how crazy it is that we're how much context we're putting in that film. Once we finish that, then we do the last leg of the race, which is post production. So the best way that I like to describe it, and I'm just gonna throw out a number for like for easy math, right? Let's say it was 12K, right? So it would be pre-production would be 3 grand or 4 grand, then production would be 4 grand, post-production would be 4 grand. But the beauty about it is we might finish, let's say, pre-production in in April, but we can't actually film until July, right? So that also gives clients an opportunity to, make up that income in order to get it to production, right? So that's kind of how we work it. Or at the same time too, we can also split that, through a retainer until we're actually done the job, which is probably my favorite because I really am making the impossible possible at that point.
Yeah, amazing. Uh,
A
uh,
question, Lefty, if that's okay. So, out of all your projects, which was your favorite project for storytelling and
wow,
documentary?
amazing.
Just
Way
to
to
throw a
just
spanner in the
throw
works.
some projects under the bus, Mark. I'm just gonna throw that across.
Yeah, I
Um,
was gonna
Well,
about to
which one
mention
did you which
that.
one did you find was most enjoyable from your perspective, and which one?
you know what? That's a really great question. Um, I'll have to say that my favorite projects are my based on a true story projects. Um,
Mhm.
they're my adaptations, right? So for those of you that don't know what I'm talking about in terms of adaptation, I'm speaking in regards of like you have a very high level successful coach like Jordan Belford, for example. The adaptation of his origin story was The Wolf of Wall Street by Martin Scorsese.
Mm,
So that's where I get to do two different types of projects when I'm working with my clients, right? They either want their story told from a documentary aspect where we're doing interviews and we're recreating scenes, and there is a part of cinematic like filmmaking within that documentary where we might be recreating like early days that we might not have footage for, which is really awesome. But when I get into the adaptation, it's like you're now giving me your story. You're allowing me to have the freedom to come up with my own story around your story while not taking it too much out of context and building my own world around it. Right? Like, for example, I don't doubt for a minute that Jordan Belford didn't do a lot of crazy, wild things. But when you're watching a film, let's be realistic. I'm pretty sure some of the things in that film were just slightly exaggerated for entertainment purposes, right?
mm,
So that allows me to have the creative control when I'm given somebody's story and when I'm creating my own universe around that story. And then of course you get into like hiring actors and
yep.
it's amazing. It's the best. Those are my favorite.
Awesome.
Wow.
So,
Awesome. Sounds amazing. So, uh, just like getting into like the branding aspect and uh, I imagine because you and me have had conversations that a lot of CEOs are hesitant, or a lot of founders are hesitant to tell their story because they they're not past the things that are, they're still fighting those demons, right? So
Mhm.
in reality they need to do it in order for their brand to explode, right? So
Yeah.
what kind of advice do you have those to those kind of CEOs and founders that are kind of like, okay, yeah, but I'm having trouble bringing my legacy to life because I'm having trouble getting past these kind of demons that I have inside of me.
Yeah, yeah, right. So this is one thing that I try to overcome as much as possible when I'm on these calls is somebody might think that they're not ready. Like I hear I'm not ready. Like not all the time, but it does surface from time to time. And just because your business isn't ready, your story has been ready for God knows how many years you've been alive, right? Like you might be 1 year in business, but if you're 50, your story is 49 years old. It's 50 years old, right?
Yeah.
So your story is very well ready. Now, there's also instances where um you have a mentor or you have a coach, and those mentors and coaches are telling you like, oh, Jordan, you just started your business, slow down, like you'll get there eventually.
Yeah.
There are instances where that could be true, but I look at it as that individual is potentially projecting some form of jealousy or FOMO onto you because maybe they haven't had the opportunity to do a documentary for themselves,
Yeah.
right? So there's never a right time or a wrong time to start. You, as they like to say in the coaching industry, we make the price, but the market determines the value, right?
Mm,
You are responsible and you determine how you want to show up. And if that means right out of the gate, you want to come out with a blockbuster like Oppenheimer, all the power to you. Who
yeah.
is to stop you from doing that if you have the resources, you have the funds, you have the audience, you have everything. No one is to stop you at any point in any stage of your life. And when you talk about demons, um let's use a I'm going to use a pretty a reference here. Okay, let's talk Manchester United. Okay, you go to a soccer game. MU's not always going to win, but when you're in the crowd, you are freaking out. You're cheering. Maybe you have your shirt off. Maybe your face is painted. Whether they win or lose, you are rooting for that individual and that is or that team. And that's the same thing with a documentary, right? You might have demons, but you have a crowd watching every single step. Are you going to eliminate those demons? Or by the end of the journey, are you still going to be stuck where you started? And
Mm,
that's why it's okay if a film doesn't have a happy ending. Because no matter what, the people that love you, the audience that cares about you, that wants to watch it, that wants to give you and your film enough respect to sit down for an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours to watch the journey that you're about to go on, they're just there to root for you, whether you win or lose.
yeah. Wow. Very, very powerful message, and it's obvious that you have coaching experience. This ain't your first rodeo, right? And you
Not
probably have like clients left and right that you have inspired to do their documentaries, and it's so wonderful to meet such a unique individual like you,
thank
who's
you.
willing to help, who's willing to support, who's willing to um, hold your hand every step of the way, right? Obviously. And
Yeah.
so that's great. It's great to have you here. So we have a question here. It says from Tracy DM. Um, what is your most difficult lesson learned around storytelling for business?
The most difficult lesson I've learned. Honestly, it's doing that market research at the beginning. I remember when I was a young lefty and I just, started getting into this world. I wasn't always the greatest at asking the best questions, or if not asking the best questions, it was it was sticking to surface level, right? It was just, okay, I'm going to ask you what I need to know, and that's it. I'm going to just leave it at that. Now, depending on the film that I'm doing or what we're talking about, I want you to laugh. I want you to cry. I want you to just pour your heart out. And through the experience that I've had of telling journeys is once where surface level questions were okay for me, I've been a lot um I guess not so shy and less humble about getting to the nitty gritty of all the deep dark stuff that people suppress that really
Mm,
make the journey and the storytelling
wow,
experience that much more
amazing,
grander for the person watching.
amazing, amazing. So, so, uh, so when dealing with that deep, dark stuff, right? So, how do you portray that uh, as inspirational? Yeah.
Yeah. um well, first and foremost, with everybody has some, well, I'm not going to say everybody, but there are, but the certain individuals that do come from like severely rough pasts.
Hmm.
um it's very important for me to always do like a pre-interview before we actually get to the filming, right? So that also gives the individual um kind of like, I'm not going to really call it like a therapy session, but if you want to think of it like a therapy session, it's like I'm giving you full freedom and full control to kind of just like air everything out, right? And based on what's being told to me, the one thing that I always do is like, hey, you talked about X. Would you be comfortable if I asked you questions related to that when we film? So now that person has the upper hand to be like, yeah, I think I'm okay if you were to, dive even deeper into that. Or No, I shared it now so you can get the full picture, but I really don't want anybody else to know. And then it's like cool because the last thing that you want to film um is, I mean, sometimes it could be fun, but the last thing you want to do is put somebody on the spot, right? Where somebody told you something, you didn't clarify whether they want to share that information publicly or not, and then all of a sudden you blindside them with this question, and all of a sudden they're either just like, okay, you know what? We're done. Let's stop talking for a bit. I need a break, right? Um, or the best answer that I could get in some instances is next question. And sometimes I love that because you
Yeah.
allow the audience to come up with their own assumption of what happened, and now you get into like a community thing, right? But I try and be very respectful of the people that I film with, because remember, just because you're giving me the right to tell your story, it's not my story to tell.
Mm, beautiful points. Beautiful points. Okay, well, thank you so much for your time. Any final thoughts, Mark? Any questions that you want to?
Yeah, sure. I've got one question actually, Lefty. Like, where can I see more of your documentaries? Like, do you
Oh
have
yeah.
somewhere where you've loaded them all, or is there somewhere where I can access all of them?
Yeah. So recently I got rid of all my landing pages. I don't have anything. I don't have anything of that sort anymore. So I'm actually using my YouTube channel as my landing page, since
Mm,
everybody who wants to see my work is always asking for to see my portfolio, and that's where things are. And if I don't know if my name is popping up here, but if you just type in at your legacy filmmaker on YouTube, not only will you get to see my documentary playlist, but you will also get to see my documentaries 101 playlist, which takes you through pretty much everything from what is a documentary to how to hire the right director for your job and everything in between. And you also get to see my short films along with just
amazing.
keeping up with me on a weekly basis, because I do upload a video once a week.
Yeah, yeah, and
Amazing.
nowhere to lie left here. I've seen them, and they're absolutely like amazing. I could see why you've won like 10 or more awards,
No, thanks, man.
and and it's very inspirational to tell your story. Um, I think I actually think we should. Do this on a regular basis, maybe like once a month, right? Because
Sure.
people want to know more about what you do, and your current progress on current projects, and I think people want to know like more of the inner workings of like um updated information about you on a regular basis. So yeah, we can definitely look into that.
Sure.
I think that all the audiences would benefit from an arrangement like this, because there's a lot of people that are hesitant to get on video, short form and long form documentary, and
Yep.
just having that impact, just having that impact, like me and Mark, we're out here every week, and like you're doing your jam every day, and it's all about like getting our message known. It's all about like impacting people and helping people get over their like demons, like you said, like psychologists, right? But not really, because we're not psychologists.
No, yeah,
We just been through some serious things in our life, all three
yeah,
of us, and we're dealing with many things at once. But at the same time, we've achieved success in the way that even though we're scared as hell, we're still doing the things that we have to do,
yeah.
and that's the. I'm not saying that we're the most courageous people on earth. I'm just
No,
saying that we've mustered up enough courage to do what we need to do every single day, and I think that is the number one thing that anyone needs to do in their daily life, right? So.
yeah, agreed. And I mean, if I can leave everybody off with one thing, um, just remember these words: a story well told is a brand well sold.
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful.
And I'm going to leave it
Great
there.
closing.
Yeah,
Great
awesome.
closing.
Uh, so
Uh,
so if you want to connect with Lefty, he's going to. Well, we're going to put a link down so you can connect with him and discuss your story, and to eventually maybe um, produce something with Lefty. So that's awesome. So what can they expect on the call, Lefty?
Yeah, so the call is called Legacy Lattes, and sometimes I'm drinking coffee, sometimes I'm not, but it's just the way it's just the way to chat, get to know you. I like shoot the shit if you want to call it for 30 to 45 minutes, and then we just see how we jive and go from there.
nice.
Awesome, Leslie. Well, thank you so much again for the 15 people who were here. Actually, 18 people who were here. Leave us your comments down below, your main takeaways, your your jiving with this information. I know that many people. Um, Here's Grace says, "Oh, I wanted the video by tomorrow." She said. And yeah, love that answer. Very insightful. So thank you once again, Lefty, and thank you, Mark, for being here too.
Pleasure always.
And we will
See you
see
next
you
week,
next
right?
week. Have a
Bye,
good one,
guys.
guys.
Later.